Gribnibble was, by any standard, a peculiar snotling, even by the lowly standards of his kind. Those runty, green-skinned creatures who served as cannon fodder, spore gatherers, and general nuisances for the larger, dumber orks. Gribnibble was strange. For one, he had ideas. Most snotlings didn't bother with such highfalutin concepts as ideas. Snotlings ate, squeaked, and occasionally threw things that smelled funny. But Gribnibble had ambition. He wanted more. His latest scheme had begun, like all of his schemes, with a shiny thing. The shiny thing in question was a glittering blue bauble, a bit of tech he had scavenged from the wreckage of a smashed Imperial tank. Gribnibble had no idea what it did, but it made a satisfying hum when he poked it. More importantly, it glowed, which made it important. He had named it Zaprock. What could a snotling do with a Zaprock? Gribnibble didn't know yet, but the big mech overseeing the tribe's junkyard did. He had ordered all shiny bits to be handed over immediately. Gribnibble, naturally, decided not to. That was the beginning of his trouble. The junkyard was chaos, even by orc standards. Gretchin scurried about, dragging bits of metal to and fro, while orcs bellowed and fought over scrap piles. Squigs with too many teeth prowled the edges, occasionally snapping up a careless grot pole or wandering snotling. Gribnibble had no intention of being eaten or smashed. He clutched Zaprock to his chest and skittered towards the largest heap of junk in the yard.
Oi! You see that shiny thing?
A Gretchin barked, brandishing a stick with a nail in it at a small gang of snotlings. They looked blankly at him, their eyes reflecting nothing but the eternal snotling fog of incomprehension. Gribnibble, hidden behind a pile of rusty gears, grinned. No one ever suspected a snotling could be clever. As the Gretchin stomped off, Gribnibble made his move. He scrambled up the heap of junk, sliding down the other side towards the Forbidden Zone, the big mech's workshop. The workshop was a towering monstrosity of pipes, wires, and wildly sparking devices. Steam hissed, and sparks rained down as massive contraptions belched smoke into the sky. Gribnibble darted through the chaos, his tiny form easily slipping between the looming orc legs and humming machinery. The mech boy, Big Stomper, was busy shouting at his Gretchin assistants, waving a massive wrench like a club.
"Where's me soggin' blue bit, you runts?"
Big Stomper roared, his voice shaking the scrap-laden ground. Gribnibble grinned. He had the blue bit, and Big Stomper didn't. That made him the clever one. Still, clever didn't mean safe. He had to move fast. With a burst of energy, he scurried under a workbench and leapt onto a conveyor belt piled high with discarded parts.
There's something moving!
A Gretchin screeched, pointing at the belt. Gribnibble cursed under his breath, or at least made a noise that sounded vaguely like a curse. He dove into a hollow pipe as the conveyor belt clattered to life, carrying him deeper into the workshop. Emerging from the pipe, Gribnibble found himself in a dark corner of the workshop. Here the junk was different, stranger. There were bits of glowing blue, humming red, and sparking yellow. This was Big Stomper's private stash. Gribnibble's eyes lit up with a greedy gleam. He needed to act fast. He began rummaging through the pile, adding more shiny things to his collection. A particularly large cog caught his attention, as did a pair of wires sparking with unstable energy. Zaprock hummed in his hands, and an idea struck Gribnibble like a squig bite to the brain. What if he could use Zaprock and the other shiny bits? Maybe he could make something even the mech boy couldn't. He began assembling the pieces with all the skill and precision of a creature that had never built anything before in its life. Miraculously, the contraption began to take shape. It was a sort of ramshackle suit of armor, cobbled together from cogs, wires, and scrap plating. Gribnibble climbed inside, clutching Zaprock like it was the most precious thing in the galaxy. With a jolt, the suit came to life. Sparks flew, gears turned, and Gribnibble let out a triumphant squeak.
Gribnibble's the biggest!
He declared, his voice amplified by a tinny speaker. Of course, the racket drew attention. Gretchin, Snotlings, and even Big Stomper himself turned towards the source of the noise as Gribnibble stomped out of the shadows in his makeshift mech suit.
What in Gork's name is that?
Big Stomper bellowed. Gribnibble didn't wait for an answer. He activated the suit's weapon, a spindly arm that swung a glowing piece of scrap wildly in all directions. The arm flailed, sparks flying, and several Gretchins scattered in terror.
Oi! That's my bit!
Big Stomper charged forward, his wrench raised high. Gribnibble panicked. He mashed every button in the suit, and the result was spectacular. A jet of flame shot from one side, a shower of sparks erupted from the other, and the suit launched itself backwards into a pile of volatile scrap. The resulting explosion sent orks, Gretchin, and Snotling flying in all directions. When the smoke cleared, Gribnibble was still standing. Or rather, his mech suit was, albeit wobbling on one leg. The orks stared in stunned silence.
That runt's got a stomper!
One orc finally shouted, and the yard erupted into chaos. The orcs, ever eager for a scrap, began fighting amongst themselves to claim the stomper. Meanwhile, the Gretchin saw an opportunity. They rallied behind Gribnibble, declaring him their new leader. Gribnibble, for his part, had no idea what was happening. He only knew that no one was trying to smash him at the moment, which was a pleasant change. He raised a tiny green fist triumphantly.
Follow Gribnibble!
He squeaked. The Gretchin cheered, and the Snotlings followed suit, mostly because they liked yelling. Together, they charged out of the junkyard, dragging as much shiny scrap as they could carry. Gribnibble's ragtag band wandered the wasteland for several days, eventually stumbling upon a derelict Imperial outpost. The place was abandoned, its defenses long since rusted away. To the Gretchin, it was a fortress. To Gribnibble, it was home. Under Gribnibble's leadership, the Gretchin and Snotling set to work turning the outpost into a ramshackle haven. They built more contraptions, using Zaprock as the centerpiece for their creations. The resulting machines were unstable, dangerous, and entirely unpredictable, just the way Gribnibble liked them. Word of the outpost spread, and soon other bands of Gretchin and Snotlings arrived, eager to join the growing revolution. They declared Gribnibble Boss Sneaky, a title he accepted with great enthusiasm. For once in his life, Gribnibble wasn't being chased, stomped, or eaten. He had a shiny thing, a big chair made of scrap, and a horde of minions who obeyed his every squeaky command. The Gretchin worked tirelessly on new contraptions, and the humming of the Zaprock grew louder with each passing day. A deep, resonant thrum that seemed to vibrate through the very air. But Zaprock was changing. Its glow was no longer the calm blue that had first captured Gribnibble's fascination. Now it pulsed erratically, flickering with an intensity that made even the bravest Gretchin flinch. The machines built around it sparked and groaned under the strain of unstable energy, their cobbled-together parts threatening to give way at any moment. Even Gribnibble could sense something was off, though his ambition outweighed his caution. One night, as the outpost hummed with mechanical noise, a massive shadow appeared on the horizon. At first, the Gretchin cheered. They thought the silhouette was a warband of orks come to witness their triumph. But as it grew closer, they saw it wasn't a warband. It was something bigger. A truck convoy, bristling with guns, driven by mechs with hungry, greedy eyes. Big Stomper had found them. Gribnibble sat on his wobbling scrap throne, clutching Zaprock tightly as the convoy approached. He had risen higher than any Snotling had a right to dream, but what came next would test even his cunning. Would he outsmart the orks and keep his tiny kingdom? Or would his moment of glory end in a burst of fire and scrap? Gribnibble didn't know. But as the humming of the Zaprock grew to a deafening crescendo, one thing was certain. His story wasn't over yet.
Recording archived. Data entry subscript, not your average Snotling. User engagement protocols activated. Input required. Initiate, like, execute, subscribe, or vocalize commendation in the commentary channel. Compliance increases algorithmic reach. Thank you for watching. Gork and Mork protects.